everybody, my name's Leash D'Souza and welcome to my my channel. It's called A Mother's Voice, and today is our very first one. It's taken us a little while, a bit longer thanks to COVID, but it's taken us a bit longer to be able to bring this to you, but I'm very excited. Our first guest, her name is Pam. She is an extraordinary mother who has done something absolutely amazing for her son. Her son is autistic, just like I have autistic children too. Looking forward to talking to her and learning so much more about what she has done to change things for her son and other people, other children and other young people like her son. So yeah, Pam, I'll let you introduce yourself.
5 minutes later.
Yay! Oh my gosh, talk. I don't think I can hear you now. Oh, there you go. Connecting to audio.
I can hear you now.
Oh, yes. We got this, sweetheart. We got this.
So sorry.
Oh, please don't worry. It's absolutely fine. How are you?
I'm okay. Not bad. Had a bit of it's been a busy week. And Walter, my eldest, he went back to school on when did he get back? Yeah, he gone back early, so he went back on Wednesday. And I've got my middle child starts primary school next week as well. And then I've got my 2-year-old who's just crazy. So life is.
Oh my gosh, you got 3 kids. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. I'll introduce myself. My name's Leash D'Souza. I am the founder and the CEO of Sparkle Sheffield. I am the director of Autism Union. I am the founder of the Autism Fair. I've also written a book, just like you, I'm an author, but in a different way. Mine's about my life. Yours is something completely different. And we're going to have a chat today just about being Black women raising autistic children, and maybe a bit of our excitement or our fears or just how we feel about it in general, because I don't think it's really talked about enough in our community.
It's really not.
It's not. So it's something that I think that's really important for other people to hear and for us to know in general. So can you introduce yourself as well, please?
Yes, of course. So my name is Pamela Aculey. I'm a mother to 3 biracial boys. So my eldest, Walter, is 7. Then I've got Stanley, who's 4, and Hugo, who is 2. So again, life is very busy at the moment with 3 young boys. And I am the author and creator of Just Like Me, which is a picture book series that champions diversity, inclusion, acceptance and kindness. And also I have created an app for my books, which uses augmented reality technology to kind of bring the reality world and the virtual world together. It's a really fun way of learning, especially for children who have got additional needs, who are on the spectrum, or for children who are not on the spectrum either. It's a really kind of cool way of learning and using technology and education and molding the two together. And I'm currently the only UK company who uses AR technology in this way. So I'm super excited.
Amazing. That's
about
such an achievement. That's such a fantastic achievement. Very exciting. So who is the book based on, and what is the main theme of the book?
Okay, so my eldest Walter was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder in 2017, and we just really struggled to find books once we got that diagnosis. And I think this is quite apparent for a lot of families who go through the autism spectrum, the diagnosis. It's a long process. It can be quite a traumatic process as well. And as soon as you get that diagnosis, you kind of think that that's it. You're going to get loads of help. You're going to know what to do. And we kind of just got this very official letter saying, yes, he's on the spectrum, and a leaflet, and that was it, basically.
I thought that was just our city, but clearly it's
clearly.
Yeah,
no. And this is quite a prevalent trend for what I'm hearing when I'm speaking to families. And I thought, you know what, my son was nonverbal as well, but he's always had this love affair with books and images and text. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to get him loads of books. I'm going to get him loads of books about autistic characters and mixed race children or all different ethnicities. And I could not find any books at all. So alarm bells started to ring, and I always said to my husband, "This is really shocking." Like, it was 2017 at the time. I was like, 2017, we can't go and find a book about a child who has got, additional needs. This is really sad. And I said to my husband, right, I'm just going to write some books just for Walter. And that was what my intention was, first of all. It was just going to be writing some books just for him so that he would have his own little library. And the more I started to write it, and the more I started to share them with friends and other people, they were just like, Pam, there are loads of Walters in the world, and these kids deserve to have books like this. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to write them. I'm going to write them for everyone. And I think it goes back to that saying that I always heard. It was like, create the things that you wish existed. So instead of sitting there moaning about it, and rightly so, you're allowed to moan about it, but then on the flip side, you have to do something about it. And I was very much just like, I'm going to do something about it. I had no experience with writing or the publishing industry or anything like that. I was just a mother who had a child who had needs that weren't being fulfilled. And I thought, I have to at least try. Even if I fail miserably, I have to at least try for him and for us and for other children as well. So yeah, I went down the self-publishing route, and I started writing my first book, which is Buster Finds His Beat. And it's very heavily based on my son. The character is about a biracial boy who's got sensory processing disorder as well as autism, and why he has to use ear defenders. This is the book here.
Oh my gosh, that's
yeah, and the story just shows you about why Buster really struggles in, day-to-day environments when it comes to, too much noise in a supermarket, or maybe a car or motorbike. The sound is too much for him. And I really wanted it to be like a fun book as well, because fundamentally that's what children's books should be about. It should be giving you that messaging about, encouragement and motivation, and being yourself, but also it needs to be, adventurous and fun, because books are a form of escapism, and I didn't want that to not be the case just because it's about an autistic character. And I also wanted to break down some of those misconceptions about autistic children, and I wanted to show that, autism just doesn't apply to white people. When we think about autism, it's not about ecocentric people or quirky people. Autistic people could be Black and white or Asian or Indigenous. It could be boys and girls of any age, from any kind of socioeconomic background. So again, I think by doing it from children's books, children get to see differences, but also to embrace those differences and to learn about them. And also to get adults to talk about it, because so much of children are so inquisitive. They want to know why someone's skin is brown. They want to know why that person is in a wheelchair. And so many times adults, because they are worried about the right thing to say, they don't address it. So then that child starts to grow up thinking that that's a weird thing to talk about. And they show that projection when they meet somebody with brown skin or who's in a wheelchair, when realistically, they just want a really simple answer to a really simple question. And if you don't know the answer to that question, that's absolutely fine. But what a really great way to explore than through children's books and to learn about people's differences. So I brought out Buster Finds His Beat in 2020. And it was doing really well, and I was selling it in like bookshops and via a website. And then one day I literally sat there and I thought, my husband is into like gaming, and he had one of these VR game goggles things, you know what I mean? And I put it on. I was like, I'm not into gaming at all. But I put it on. I was just like, this is really cool. It's just like virtual reality. And I said to him, would it be amazing if you could do something like this for books? And he was just like, yeah, it's really good. Because up until the age of 5, Walter was non-verbal. So I thought, books should be accessible to every child, regardless of their ability, ethnicity, age, gender, whatever. And I thought, you know what, there's so many kids I know, because my son goes to a specialist school, who are really struggling with like their vocabulary when it comes to their speech and language. But they deserve to be able to have access to these books and still be involved in the magic of storytelling and learning about stories. And I kind of just thought, oh my God, is there any way we could kind of do that? Anyway, long story short, I started doing loads of research, and I thought like the goggle things, because of sensory, that wouldn't be good for them. So then I started thinking like, is there any other way? And then I just started to research, and I came across augmented reality technology. And although it's been around for a very long time, it hasn't been implemented into books very much. There's very small amount of people who are doing it. And if they are doing it, it tends to be in the States, because they tend to be ahead of us. And I was like, okay, this is a huge gap in the market, because I don't want the technology to take away from the magic of storytelling, but we also need to be realistic and know and appreciate that children learn in different ways. Not everyone is going to be able to pick up a book and read it and internalize what the story is about. Some people need to read it over and over and over. Some people can't speak, but you know, through visuals and technology, they can still try and learn what the story is about. And the more I started researching it, I was like, definitely, this is what I want. Because again, this is what my son needed at the time, and it wasn't out there. So I messaged loads of people and didn't get any response back. And people saying, no, that's just not going to work. And I think after the initial kind of like rejections, I'll be honest with you, because I'm human, I did sit back and I was just like, oh God, maybe this isn't going to work. But then I kept looking at my son and thinking, no, this is going to work, or I at least have to try. And I think we're in this society, we're so scared of failing that we don't even try. So I was like, no, I've got to try. And it just so happened that, you know, during the horrendous murder of George Floyd, I started to interact with loads of Black businesses. And there was I got this email one day from a guy who was just starting his own startup in augmented reality technology. And he'd seen my books and he'd gone on the website. And then he sent me this beautiful email basically saying that, you know, I love what you're doing in terms of like champion diversity and inclusiveness. Have you ever thought about, you know, doing augmented reality?
It's exactly what you wanted. That's
you know
amazing.
What I mean? You know what I mean? And sometimes like the universe is listening, and you have to keep pulling it out there. If you strongly believe in something, you have to keep putting it out there. And you have to keep putting it out there, even when you get the no's and the rejections and people laugh at you or whatever. You have to keep putting it out there. So we just started working together, and it was such a lovely way of doing it, because he was brand new. I was relatively brand new, and now we've just like formed a company and working together. So he's developed the app for us, and it's brilliant. I mean, it's a free app as well. So you just go down to your Play Store. So whether you use iOS, you can use your phone or tablet, or whether you use Android device, you just download it for free. You have to have a copy of the book because it works in conjunction. And then basically you download the app, you open the book, and as soon as you put your phone over the book, it recognizes the illustration.
Are you able to show us?
Oh, can I show you? Can I share my screen? Let's see.
Thank you so much for that.
Okay. That's all right.
So let's go to like when you found out your son was autistic, because I don't know about you, but as soon as I found out, basically they did an assessment for like 6 weeks, because he was diagnosed at 2.5. So they did like a 6-week assessment where he had to go to this place where we get assessed here, called Reigate, and then it was something called Footsteps. They don't do it anymore, but it was like they had to do like play therapy to kind of figure out,
Mm.
um, you know, if he was autistic at that time, because I didn't really pick it up at that time. It was actually the nursery that picked it up more than I did. I've got
Mm.
4 children, so I have Jamal, who is 29 now. Got
Wow.
Jamal's
That's
29.
good.
He's thank you. He's 30 next year, and he lives in Japan. And then yeah, and then I have a 26-year-old. He's gonna be 27 next month. He keeps reminding me. And then I've got Jaden, who is 16, and I've got my daughter, um, who is 11 years old. She's the baby, and she's the only girl as well. So you can imagine how protective they are. The last three, so Ryan, Jaden, and Angel, her name is. They are all autistic.
Ah,
Interestingly enough, Jaden's the only one that I knew from the very beginning. My daughter got diagnosed during lockdown last year, and my son, who's 20, as I said, he's 26, he got diagnosed 2.5 years ago. So,
wow.
it's been quite a different kind of journey for me.
Yeah.
But Jaden is classed as severely autistic. He presents as somebody who he won't talk in public. They say he's a selective mute. I don't think he's that, because he's not choosing not to talk. His anxieties are so high that he
Mm.
finds it very difficult to communicate with people or give eye contact.
Mm.
He still has the, I would say, he, in terms of his intelligence, he's so clever and very practical, and he's just beautiful.
Oh.
But he's when it comes up to like writing down sentences, and his age is probably about preschool age
Mm.
still. Still
Mhm.
loves Peppa Pig. Still
Oh.
loves Paw Patrol. Those are his two favorite things.
Mhm.
Loves cooking. He starts college this year, so he starts college in September. So that's a bit scary. But we'll see how he gets on, because he's going to a specialist college. So
Mhm.
we'll see how he gets on. But when he was first diagnosed, because I'd have to go by his, because the other two I knew so much more about autism, and um, yeah, I think it was easier for me when my son was 2.5, and then they said that, yes, he's autistic. I kind of I didn't go into panic mode, because I didn't know what autism was.
Yeah.
I didn't have a clue, so I was just like, okay. Do you know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah. And then they went on to say like all these things he wouldn't be able to do. He won't be able to say I love you. He won't be able to. He won't be able to hug me. He won't be able to, like, a list of all the negative things that he won't be able to do. He's probably going to be in nappies until he's about 17, and all these. I don't know if they'll give me the worst case scenario. I hope they were, because luckily for me, I'm not that type of person to kind of pick up on those things. I had to tell them stop, 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 stop. So what will he be able to do? And they said
Mhm.
at this stage, I don't know, because he's on the spectrum, and there's so many different things that he might not be able to do.
Mm.
They were very focused on what he couldn't do.
Mhm.
So I kind of left there thinking, well, what do I do? Do you know what I mean? How do I
Mm.
understand more? How do I? So then they gave me the same leaflet as you. They gave me that famous leaflet.
Such a
And
generic leaflet.
I was just like, they gave me a leaflet. And then they said that there's classes going on, like, to learn different things about sensory overloads and different things.
Mhm.
But I can't bring my son. And I was just like, how's that going to work? Because
Okay.
I can't come without him. So I didn't know how it was going to work. And then there was a long waiting list. So I was just like, the only way I'm going to learn is by learning from different parents. So I thought, you know what? Just like you, I'm going to start up something myself.
Yeah.
So I started
Absolutely.
Sparkle Sheffield, and it's just been phenomenal. The amount of people that we've been able to help, and learning from each other as parents, learning from professionals who were
Mhm.
so lucky to have so many brilliant professionals to be able to feed back to or ask questions about autistic people themselves.
Yeah.
We're able to talk to them and say, why does my son do this, or I am so blessed. I have the most amazing people around me that really understand autism,
Mhm.
as well as my team. Majority of them, I think there's only two that don't have autistic children, but they care for
Mm.
autistic children, so they still understand everything that
Yeah.
where I'm coming from. And
Mhm.
my team is just amazing. They're just so dedicated and so brilliant. I love them. And we call ourselves a Sparkle family because we're very close to each other, and we really care
Yeah.
about each other, and we care about where we're going with our children and what the future is for our children. We want the best for them. We don't see
Absolutely.
why they should miss out on anything because
Yeah.
they're autistic. But when he was diagnosed, I contacted my mum first. My mum's passed away now, but I contacted my mum, my brother, all the gent, and just said, look, this is what they've said. They said that he's autistic. My mum burst into tears. My brother said he just couldn't cope, and he just went to bed. He went straight to bed, had a headache, and went straight to bed apparently. And I only told him in the afternoon, so he was just, and they were all devastated. I wasn't. I was very right. Okay, if no matter what, he's still my son. So you can be devastated if you want, and you can stay there for a little while, but we're not staying there forever because he's my son, and it
Mhm.
doesn't change everything. So
Mhm.
I think as well that a lot of tragedy had happened in my life because my son's father had died in a motorbike accident.
Oh, I'm so
I think
sorry.
I think that was the added thing. For it was like, how much is this child gonna have before he even starts?
Mhm.
And then my mum's words were to me. She said, he has got so much. Basically, she said he's got so much to be worried about. I've got so much to be worried about for him because he's a black child. So now we have a black child with a disability, and that's what she was upset about, because she was like, and then I realized when she said that, I kind of got it. I said, yeah, I've got a black child with no words. Um,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I um in my book. I've kind of written a poem about that, having a black child with no words, because that's basically what it is. And my fears for that, my fears are, my older children used to get stopped by the police all the time,
Mm.
and spot searched and stuff like that. And that was one of the fears for me was, well, if he does get spot searched, how is he going to explain when he can't talk, or
Yeah.
he won't talk because his anxieties are so high? How is he going to explain, I'm not the person that you need to be searching? How is he going to explain that doesn't even understand that? He doesn't even comprehend what that means. If in some ways he's kind of shielded, because if somebody was to shout in his face, he would go by the expressions and know that they're angry. He
Yeah.
wouldn't particularly know that somebody's being really nasty to him.
Mm. Mm.
Um, but he'd know that they're very upset and very angry with him, and he'd be quite fearful of that. But if they
Yeah.
called him like the N word, which I've been called several times, if he was put in a situation where his colour came up, he wouldn't understand that. So
Mhm.
in that way, he's kind of shielded, but it's
Yeah.
quite dangerous in that way too, because he doesn't understand it. So it's a bit of a catch-22.
It is.
But
It is.
for me as a mother, knowing that I have children who have a disability, because I've got dyslexia as well, but I can cope with in terms of dyslexia because that's something completely different.
Mhm.
Um, but in terms of my emotions and understanding things like they do,
Mhm.
how are they going to cope with the outside world? And I can say
Mm.
they because my daughter's in that, also included in that. My second eldest son is included in that, because he's had situations at work where we had to fight in terms of his colour and him being an autistic person, and he had an advocate that had to fight for him to stay in that workplace and to be comfortable in that workplace, because they were not being very nice to him because of his
Mm.
colour and because he was autistic. So
Mhm.
that's my older son, and he is classed
Mm.
as the other end of the spectrum, where he's extremely intelligent. He doesn't like loud noises and everything like my middle son, but still it was very scary for him because he didn't understand certain things.
Mm.
And but my son, who's nonverbal, that I am very, very worried about
Yeah.
his future and how he's gonna, how society, how he's gonna cope in society being a black child with no words.
Yeah. I can wholeheartedly empathize and relate to your worries as well. And I think it's a lot of additional worries that families of children of colour go through as well, because it's not only the stigma associated with autism, it's then having the ethnicity part as well thrown into it. And it's almost like a double discrimination sometimes.
Mm,
And I have those worries as well. And it's horrible that we should have those worries, but we
mm,
do. And also, I think it comes down to, it's not only just people's perceptions of autism. I think it's also, a lot of the time we need to also look at the fundamentals of the medical and the health. Those of them who are health professionals as well,
mhm.
there's a lot of unconscious bias when it comes to that as well. I
Yes.
mean, I remember when we got the leaflet was of a white middle class family,
Yeah.
that was on the front of the leaflet. And again, I
Relate
didn't,
to it.
I
Doesn't relate.
you can't relate to it. And before we got the diagnosis, I mean, I'd heard of autism,
Mm,
but if someone was to ask me to describe it or give the definition, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. I probably would have used a lot of, stereotypes associated to it. My mind would have instantly gone to like a white eccentric boy, or
mm,
someone who is like, a little bit quirky or socially awkward. And those are kind of like the associations that I had to it.
mhm.
Um, and like I said, when I was speaking earlier, like autism affects every single race, ethnicity, and gender and background. But unfortunately, when it comes to diagnosis and things like that, it tends to be based on white boys. So it's even harder for girls as well, because like girls can mask
So
their
well.
yes, so well.
Well.
And the whole diagnosis process is based on boys. Do
Mm,
you know what I mean? So we need to be having these conversations like we're having now, and we need to
yeah.
be having conversations with those who are in the thick of it, the day-to-day of it, and listening to them, and not necessarily coming up with like an answer, but just actually listening to parents and their worries,
I'm glad you
not
said
just
that. I'm glad you said that because what I found being, doing Sparkle and speaking to other black parents, and I'm going to be honest, there isn't a lot of black parents in Sparkle Sheffield.
mm,
That's not because we don't. It's because, unfortunately, that's the downside as well of of our culture. A lot
mm,
of us don't like to accept that our children are different
mm,
and struggle to. So my son's family told me, um, on his dad's side, she told me not to tell anybody that he was that because it's something that they didn't want anybody to know.
mm,
And and at this point, they'd disowned him anyway. They completely disowned him on that side, apart from one uncle, actually two, an uncle and an aunt. But all the rest had completely disowned him, and it's a large family. Because it's something I don't know if it was part of that or if it was part to do with his dad, or I don't know why they did that. But once I told them, the aunties, that the auntie and the uncle, the auntie said to me, "Don't tell anybody that. I
mm,
don't want anybody to know that," and asked me to hide that. And I was like, "No, that's who my son is. I'm proud
absolutely.
of who he is." And so in that way, we don't necessarily come out enough and say things like, "Yeah, my child has a disability," and they're not that, they're not as proud as they should be
I'm
of
just
that.
going to plug my charger in. Please
No,
carry
that's
on.
fine. Yeah. So that's not great. The other side of the coin is when in speaking to the parents that I do speak to, they have said that when it comes up to diagnosis and trying to get a diagnosis for their children, it's very difficult because they are stereotyped as parents.
Mhm,
The fact that they're stereotyped because they think it's our parenting because of
mhm.
the way that we are very um,
Assertive.
assertive. Even when we're
Mhm.
assertive, passionate about something, we can be
Yeah,
taken the wrong way. We can be seen as
absolutely.
being aggressive and
Yeah.
confrontational. I've
Mhm.
had those words said to me many a times, and I'm just talking the way I normally talk. It's just that I'm very passionate about something, and it comes across. It doesn't mean that I'm being aggressive to you. It means that I'm being completely articulate. I know exactly what I'm saying, but I'm just very passionate about it.
Yeah.
If it was somebody else talking, I don't think they would have said that to me.
No, it's a really good point, and I've written quite a few articles about this and
Yeah.
the struggle that we have. Um, and I think also going back to health professionals, like they have to also remember that this may have been like their 50th diagnosis,
Mhm.
but it's our first.
Yeah.
So it's the first time we are going through all of this.
Yeah.
And it's very different from, like, for example, you wake up one day and you don't feel well and you go to the doctors and you say, doctor, like, I've got this symptom and that symptom, and the doctor goes, yeah, okay, let's do a blood test to eliminate everything, and then 7 days later you get the results and you're clear and that's fine. And I know it's not quick like that.
Nope.
There's so many cancelled appointments, there's so many, and when you do have your appointments, they're not like every couple of weeks. Not in our case, they were like
Nope.
stretched for months, years
Yeah.
sometimes. And it's very much a bit of a postcode lottery, depending on what part of the country that you live in, depending on how good the services are, because again, it comes down to money and funding.
Mm.
So health professionals need to kind of have more of an empathy and realizing that we are hearing this for the first time, and a lot of it can be very confusing.
Mm.
And a lot of the time we're going almost through our own grieving process.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's very hard to be told that, this is your son or daughter, and this is the condition that they have. Here is a leaflet, figure it out yourself. And at the same time, you've got people, like you said in your instance, people saying, like, oh, don't tell anybody. So then it feels like some kind of like dirty secret.
Mhm.
And we have to take into consideration those who don't have English as their first language. So there's so many. I mean, like, my family are from West Africa, Ghana. Um, and I know when I speak to loads of people all around, different parts of the globe, they say, in our native tongue, there isn't a word for autism. So trying to explain what autism is to their family members or their community, it just doesn't really exist. So people come up with their own misconceptions and think, mental health issues or whatever, and all this kind of thing. So you're fighting your battle with the health professionals, and then you're also fighting a battle within your own community. And at the
Mhm.
same time, you're trying to juggle out all this new information that you've been given and how to navigate that. And there is no rule book.
No.
You don't know what you're doing. It's trial and error. And it is exhausting. And you, as a parent, need some kind of outlet. You need to be able to say to someone, I'm struggling. I don't know what I'm doing. And for that person to be like, you know what? I know exactly
I
what
get
you're
it.
going through. I
Mhm.
get it. You don't need to have a long-winded conversation. They just go, I get it. I
Yeah.
know. I know.
Yeah.
Um, so this is things that people don't take into consideration. And on the flip side, why would you? If it doesn't affect you, this is how humans work, don't they? If it doesn't directly affect you, you kind of just put an eyelid to it. You don't really think about it.
Yeah.
But in the day, people need to realize that autistic people are just that, they are people. Yeah, just how everyone else is, and regardless of what their ability is. And we should be treating them with respect as we do with everyone else. But at the same time, there is so much work that needs to go in to how we can support parents and children, so that they thrive as much as they possibly can. But I feel like over the years, it's very much been like, okay, you got the diagnosis, figure it out, don't make a scene, don't ask too many questions. And it's like, no, ask every
Yeah.
question.
And the thing, I think there's so much around um, the misconceptions that people have,
Mm-hmm.
because you have, in order to understand an autistic person, you have to get into that individual autistic person's world, because
Mm-hmm.
my son is going to be different from yours.
Mm-hmm.
My son are different from each other.
Yeah.
They're
And
so
rightly so,
completely
because they're
different.
completely different people.
So complete, yeah. Because and this is what people don't get. They try, and the professionals as well. They do try to squeeze them into a box and tick box and say,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, they haven't done this, haven't they? They can't be autistic." And that is so frustrating, because they're an
Mm-hmm.
individual.
Yeah.
They are an individual to somebody else, even if they're a twin. they're still different.
Absolutely.
So if every single person on the planet is an individual, why are they trying to put an autistic person into a tick box with other autistic people when everybody
Exactly.
is an individual? And that's what I don't get. That's
Yeah.
what frustrates me.
Yeah.
But I think as a black person, I'm very proud of my children, just like anybody else is. I'm super proud of who they are and what they're trying to achieve. I mean, my daughter, she writes presentations on one being an autistic person, and
Hmm.
before that, when she was 7 years old, because she's 11 now, and we only found out last year. But when she was 7, she wrote a presentation about what it feels like to be a sibling of an autistic child when she was 7 years
Oh,
old,
wow.
and she delivers it all over the UK in assemblies for people to understand what it feels like. So she's done
Yeah.
that one, and then recently, when she found out she was autistic, she then did her own presentation to present to her class because she felt that they didn't understand her properly. So she asked her teacher if she could do a presentation for them to understand a bit more about how she thinks, and the teacher agreed. I'm extremely proud of my children, but
Mm.
my
You
worry
should.
but my worry as a black parent, I
Yeah.
don't think that will ever go away because I experience racism on, all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
Even when I started up Sparkle Sheffield, there was so much. I had I had other organisations accusing me of like her one said to me that I've hurt a parent and that they're going to call the police because I've threatened to hurt a parent. And I said I have not at all. Just silly little things because I can't be who I am. No,
Mm.
I can't be who I am and do something successful. Why can't I? Why can't I just be a black woman that's done
Mm-hmm.
something that's helped other people? It's
Mm-hmm.
been a very difficult journey, but it's not one that I would ever not do.
Yeah.
I would do it again, all over
Yeah.
again, and I'd keep doing it until my child is has been heard, my my child is understood more, because it's not just my child, it's all the children that were, and again, as you said, it doesn't matter to me the race or the color or
Mm-hmm.
of that child. These children and their parents need support, and if
Yeah.
I can give it to them, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to continue
Absolutely.
doing it.
I think it's amazing what you're doing. I really do. And I wish there was more. I wish there was more people like you
And
and
you, because
organisations.
what you've done, oh my god. But
and
that's
and
good. It's good that we're passionate about it, that we've done
yeah,
something about it because of our children, and I think
yeah,
that's fantastic.
yeah, and yeah, I totally agree. And there's so many families who are there, and they just don't know who to turn to, where
No.
to go to. And I think that in itself is something that we really need to harness in and look at
Yeah.
how we can really properly, practically, and realistically support families. And then if we have got families who are multicultural, they're going to have completely different needs. And
Mm.
it also goes back to that like tick boxing. Just because you have a black family, we can't just categorize all black people and all
Mhm.
black autistic people into one category.
Yeah.
Someone from West Africa and someone from the West Indies are going to have different cultural needs.
Completely different cultural needs.
So we need to address that and we need to talk about that.
Yeah.
And that is something that I'm really, really passionate about doing.
Mm.
Again, not going to say that I've got the answers, not at all, but I've found that by having these conversations like we're having now,
Mm.
it's almost like, okay, now we've got a connection, now we've got a new, a new contact and relationship to
Mhm.
help us together help the next family.
Yeah.
And it's almost like passing it on.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's what we have to do
Yeah.
until the health professionals kind of like catch up and see how together
Yeah.
we can work together, because it
Yeah.
shouldn't be this clash. And I feel like that's what it is at the moment.
It
Um,
is. It is.
and yeah, it needs to be working in unison, but it's also, we need to understand from their point of view, from a health professional and the obstacles that they are struggling with in turn, you know, when it comes to funding and training, or lack of training when it comes to diversity. But equally, they need to understand about the frustrations and the problems that we are struggling with day to day, because it is exhausting. We love our children, of course we do, but let's be honest, it is mentally exhausting sometimes, and you feel like you're literally banging your head against the wall. So how is this going to be helping future generations? It's not, unless we start working together.
I think the other thing as well that upsets me is, I think it's the fact that once your child has a disability, that child feels like that child's no longer yours. Everybody else makes decisions about your child, about you, around you, and
Yeah.
not really involving you as a parent. And I
Yeah.
find that so frustrating. I had a meeting with my son's speech and language at the school that he was going to, and she told me, she said to me, your child can only say 5 words. And I was like, no, my son can say a lot more than 5 words. And she said, no, but he can only understand 5 words, and one of them is baby. And I was like, I don't know which child you're talking about, because that's not my child. And I'd had a meeting like literally 15 minutes before with his teacher, who said that, you know, when they write down things, he can understand everything perfectly. You know, so there was this clash between the teacher agreeing with me and the speech and language, but the speech and language woman wouldn't budge. She told me her professional opinion is this, and this is how it's going to be. And that really frustrated me as a mom. The other thing that happened again was like when my son didn't come home from school. He was supposed to come home at a certain time. He was coming home by taxi. I called the transport people to say my son hasn't been home yet. They said, oh yes, we know what's happened. Basically, a taxi driver has been sent. A different taxi driver has been sent because the other one has broken down, and we've arranged for a taxi. And I was thinking, hold on. So I said, who's arranged it? And they said, well, between us and the school, we've arranged it. I'm the parent.
Call me up and tell me.
I was sitting there waiting for a child, panicking, and they had made all these arrangements and not told me as a parent. I felt like my child no longer belongs to me. And I know a lot of other parents feel like that, because it's like you're judged as a parent and everything is whirling around you, and they're making decisions around you without you being involved, which is so hard, and people don't get that. So that's the other side of the coin, especially if you, as you said, don't speak the language.
Yeah.
It's even worse. It's even
Yeah.
harder. So there's so many different aspects to being a parent, not just a parent, a black mother, or a parent who's from a different background. It's the fact that your child is also has a disability, and there's so many different things that, as a parent with a child who doesn't have a disability, there's so many different things that happen that people don't understand. So I'm really hoping that what we're saying today does really help people to think.
Yeah.
But before we end this, because we could talk all day.
I know. I know.
We could. We really could. But before we end this, tell me, how many books have you done so far? Is it a series? What is it like? Where can we get it? That's
Oh, bless you.
Where
Yeah.
can we get it?
So I've currently just got one book out at the moment, and that's this one, Buster Finds His Beat. I've written 3, so we're going to hopefully have another one out this year. So we're just working on the app for the new book as well, and finalising some illustrations. So that's really exciting. And yeah, it is a series. It's got different characters. We are going to revert back to Buster at one point, but the next book is a brand new character. And yeah, it is literally all about just kind of like championing diversity and inclusiveness. So I'm so super passionate about. And in terms of finding the book, website, so it's justlikemebooks.co.uk. Instagram, I'm pretty much on Instagram all the time, connecting with people, sharing.
What's your
So
Instagram
it's
name?
at just_like_me_stories. So just like me stories. Twitter, handle is at Like Me Stories as well. And yeah, I just love doing these kind of like conversations because you just get to meet more and more people.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think that's just what it is. It's almost like creating your own community.
Yeah.
And going back to what I said, it's like creating the things that you wish existed, and just this is what we're doing now. We're creating that community of support and encouragement, which is so needed.
So, you know what? It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I'm so glad you agreed. I know I just called you and then texted you and said, like, will you have this conversation?
And I was just like, absolutely, absolutely.
I
Honestly,
appreciate it so, so much. I've had a wonderful time, but I'm sure we'll talk again because that's
absolutely.
important that we do. But
Yes.
thank you so, so much, sweetheart.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure.
You know, best of luck with all your books. I'm definitely buying one. So
Thank
get an
you.
order for me for my kids because they'll love it.
Thank you.
I hope everybody else does the same. So
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
You're so welcome.